So picture this. You've got a country with hundreds of islands, right? And it's surrounded by an ocean just teeming with some of the most valuable tuna in the world. Sounds like they'd be swimming in money, doesn't it? Well, for the Federated States of Micronesia, it's a huge paradox. They control this absolute fortune in fish, but almost all of that wealth just sails right past them. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why that's happening and look at some pretty brilliant ideas to fix it.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First up, we'll look at the sheer scale of this natural treasure. Then we'll get into the current system and see why the value is slipping through their fingers. We'll explore why just starting their own fishing fleets isn't really the answer, before digging into a powerful new strategy to capture that value. And finally, we'll look at a real game-changing idea that they could borrow from Alaska, of all places.
So first, to really get a handle on the opportunity here, you have to understand the geography. You see, Micronesia isn't so much a country of land as it is a nation built on water.
Just let that number sink in for a second. Over 1 million square miles. That's how big Micronesia's exclusive economic zone is. We're talking about one of the largest, most productive tuna fishing grounds on the entire planet. It's an absolutely immense natural gift.
And, that brings us right to the heart of the matter. This is the big question for this whole explainer. Tourism is still what they call an unrealized dream, so the country's best shot at really standing on its own 2 feet is its fishing industry. So what gives? Why isn't this ocean of riches making its people prosperous?
To find the answer, we've got to look at how Micronesia makes its money from fish right now. It's a system that, on the surface, looks pretty good. It's simple and it's safe.
The way it works now is really straightforward. The government, FSM, sells fishing licenses to foreign fleets, boats from places like Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. And this brings in a huge chunk of the national government's income, over half in fact. It's stable money, it's predictable, and there's almost no financial risk. But there's a big catch. And this is where the whole system just kind of falls apart. The foreign boats catch the tuna, and then they immediately ship it raw straight to Asia to be processed. They use their own crews, so 0 jobs are created for Micronesians. And here's the kicker. All that license money goes directly to the national government. The 4 states, and more importantly, the citizens who live there, they don't see a dime of it directly. The entire value of their fish is being created somewhere else, by someone else.
So this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? If letting other countries fish is the problem, why doesn't Micronesia just build its own fishing fleets and keep all the money? Well, the answer to that is a history of some very, very expensive lesson. $100 million. That's roughly how much money was lost in past attempts by the FSM to run its own fishing business. It was a perfect storm of bad management and getting stuck with boats that just weren't economical. They've tried to do it themselves, and it was, frankly, a financial disaster.
And it's not just about the money in the boats. This quote really gets to the human side of it. It's incredibly hard to find local workers who are willing to put up with the reality of commercial fishing. We're talking long trips away from family, low pay, and just grueling, harsh conditions. And this isn't just a Micronesian problem, it's a huge challenge all across the Pacific.
And on top of all of that, the global tuna industry is just a brutal business. It is incredibly competitive and super high risk. Companies operate on razor-thin profit margins, and you need a massive scale to even have a chance. The fleets have to constantly be on the move, chasing the fish across huge stretches of ocean. It is not a game for the faint of heart or for anyone without really, really deep pockets.
Okay, so if building their own fleet is pretty much off the table, what's the alternative? This is where we get to a much smarter strategy. The goal isn't to get rid of the licensing model altogether. The goal is to leverage it, to use it to force more of the value from that tuna to stay right there in Micronesia.
So experts have laid out this really clear 3-step plan. Step 1, build your own local plants to process the tuna. Step 2, make a rule that the foreign boats have to unload their catch in your ports. And Step 3, write smarter deals that require foreign companies to actually invest locally. And what's cool is that each of these steps creates this powerful ripple effect in the economy. So, for example, because of trade agreements they already have, a processing plant in Micronesia gets a 12% cost advantage over plants in Asia when they're selling to the US market. That's huge! And forcing boats to unload locally, that's called transshipment, well, that creates jobs for dock workers, it means more sales of fuel and supplies, and it provides the raw tuna for those new processing plants. These new second-generation deals basically turn foreign companies from just renters into actual partners.
This brings us to the final and maybe the most revolutionary piece of this whole puzzle. So once you've figured out how to capture more of that wealth, how do you make sure it actually benefits every single citizen? Well, the answer might just come from the icy north.
I mean, after all the policy changes and building new industries, you're still left with this really fundamental challenge, right? How do you make sure the money from your country's natural resources actually makes life better for the people, for every family, in every village?
The proposed solution is so elegant because it's so simple. Instead of setting up a bunch of government programs and hoping the money trickles down, you just give a share of it directly to the people.
So here's how it could work, and it's based on the Alaska Permanent Fund. Right now, like we said, all the fishing money in Micronesia stops at the national government. But in Alaska, they take a chunk of the state's oil money, they invest it, and then every single year they pay out a dividend directly to every eligible resident. If FSM did something similar with their fishing fees, some studies suggest it could lift the majority of its citizens above the poverty line with a single policy.
So ultimately, that's the choice facing the federated states of Micronesia. The path forward is pretty clear. They can keep being a passive landlord, just collecting rent while the real fortune sails over the horizon. Or they can become the active architects of their own future, using this incredible natural gift to build a country where every single citizen gets to share in the wealth